Hello and welcome to Rose Red Homestead. It's so early this morning. I think this is one of the earliest videos we've ever done. It is just after 8 o'clock. It's quite dreary outside, which kind of had me fooled this morning. I thought the sun wasn't up. Well, the sun is up. It's just that we've got clouds moving in for maybe a winter storm over the next 3 days. So we live in the desert. Any precipitation is a gift, and we will be thrilled with rain or snow or whatever those clouds have to offer. Back in the 1970s, when I was a young mom, I had my 6 children between 1970 and 1980, bookend girls with 4 boys in the middle. And at that time, we lived in Texas, and there was an election and a new governor came forward, and the governor's wife put out her favorite recipe, and she called it the governor's favorite cookies. And I just decided I would try it. Well, it was a great recipe, and it calls for 2 cups of pecans. It is a refrigerator recipe where you take the dough and roll it into logs about this long and about this big around. And then you put those logs, wrap them in, back then I did it in wax paper. I hardly even use wax paper anymore. So today when we do it, we're going to be using foil. And then they sat in the refrigerator until ready to go. Well, I was so busy with children during that decade that this cookie recipe almost became my go-to cookie recipe because of the convenience. I could just pull one of those logs out of the refrigerator, slice off how many I wanted to bake, wrap it back up, put it in the fridge. It kept for a couple of weeks in the fridge, or I could freeze them for a year. And so it made a wonderful addition to the efficiency that what I so needed back in those years. Well, that recipe is now in our book that my 3 sisters and I, the 4 Patch sisters, our maiden name is Patch, like, you know, Raspberry Patch. And so we made a book a year or so, a little more than a year ago, called 40 Plus Recipes Using Food Storage. And that recipe, and I think I called it Texas Pecan Cookies, is the very last recipe in the book. And we're not going to make that recipe today, but the recipe is available in that book, or I'm also going to put the recipe below the description of this video so you can have it. But we are going to make a second recipe today, and this recipe it's called Orange Sparkle Slice and Bake Cookies. And this comes from the King Arthur latest advertisement booklet. And their recipes are usually really, really good. But what they have begun to do over the past couple of years, and I really like King Arthur products, is that in their recipes, they put their own products, and the products are very specialized. And so, of course, they're wanting you to buy those products. This particular recipe has a little corner down here where you can buy the kit for all the specialized ingredients, along with some, instead of wax paper, you can put your log in their little, I think it's probably a silicone keeper with a bottom part and then a top part that you stick on. And the price for that is, are you ready for this? Oh, it's on sale. Down from $88, it is now $81.45. So there you go. If that's what you want to do, go for it. I am always a little bit more practical than that. I have purchased some things, not kits like that, but some things. In fact, I got my Ancresham from King Arthur. And the same thing is available on Amazon, which is linked in our bookstore. I have adjusted some of those specialty ingredients, except for one, and I'm going to show you how to do that. So that's the first thing we're going to do. We're going to make these Orange Sparkle Slice and Bake Cookies. So I have all of the ingredients right here, and I have put the link to this recipe also below the description of this video. So you can have the recipe for the Texas Pecan Cookies and the link to go to King Arthur and get these Orange Sparkle cookies as well. So we're going to start by adding, let's see, this is going to be 3/4 of a cup of candied orange peel. So this is candied orange peel, and you can get it from King Arthur and pay their price for it. I just got these on Amazon. I'll go ahead and put the link to this on Amazon if you're interested. It was about time that these should be showing up in our grocery store, but they weren't there yet. So I just went online and got them. So we need, is it 3/4 of a cup? Yes, we need 3/4 of a cup of this orange peel, candied orange peel. And these are so good. I'm also going to link our recipe for doing candied citrus for the holidays. We have shown you how to do that as well. And I knew I was going to need a second package. So we're going to put it in this bowl. And I'm going to take it over to the sink and put hot water over the top of the orange peel to soften it just a little bit. So here is the candied orange peel covered with water. And we will now continue with our recipe. Okay, so next is to beat together the sugars. All right, one of the things that it calls for is, let me read it exactly to you. It is 1/4 teaspoon of orange citrus oil. So I'm sure that's an essential oil, and I don't have any of that, and neither does my grocery store carry it. So I went online and found out that we can use, instead of the oil, we can substitute extract, orange extract. It calls for 1/4 of the teaspoon of the oil. We can use 1 teaspoon of the extract and get just about the same result. So first of all, we're going to be putting the sugars in, and it is 2/3 of a cup of granulated sugar, 2/3 of a cup of confectioner's sugar, which is powdered sugar. Okay, the next is the orange extract, 1 teaspoon in place of the 1/4 of a teaspoon of the orange oil. We're going to use orange extract. 1/2 teaspoon of Fiori di Sicilia. This is from King Arthur. I first bought just a very small jar of it to try it out. It is to die for. It is a very citrusy extract. I have also found this on Amazon, and I will put the Amazon link beneath this, the description of the video, but you can also just go directly to King Arthur and get it there as well. So here it is so Jim can get a shot of it. And 2 teaspoons of vanilla. Then it's 1 3/4 teaspoons of salt. There's the 3/4. And there's the 1. And then we mix these together. Until everything is fragrant, it says. So I'm just going to scrape this a little bit. It is very fragrant. I smell it from here. Whew, it's wonderful. Next we add 18 tablespoons, which is 1 cup plus 2 tablespoons of butter. And I'm using our ghee. Okay, so then we beat this for a few minutes until everything is all mixed together. Scraping again. It's now a nice soft and fluffy mixture. And we are going to add 1 egg. Next we add the orange peel, which I just drained, and now I'm going to blot it just a little bit with this paper towel for any excess water. And in it goes. Next is 3 1/4 cups of flour, so that's 1. Scooping it into the cup instead of dipping into the flour. 2. And 1/4. Mixing the flour in, and it looks like it's pretty good. Okay, so now we have all this dough up in the beaters, so I'm going to get this out. Now we're just going to put the whole thing out on the countertop. This recipe is a little bit drier than a standard cookie recipe, and that is just fine. But if it is too dry, if it still is crumbly and doesn't start coming together like this does, then I had to do this with my test batch. It just wouldn't, and by come together, I mean if you squeeze it, if it holds together, that's exactly what we want. But my first batch didn't do that, and so I had to add a little bit more water. I think I added about 1/4 cup, and then it was just right. So don't be afraid to adjust the recipe. Sometimes I think my ingredients are extra dry because we live here in the desert. This is just perfect. So what we're going to do now is roll this into a roll, and we want to squeeze it together because we don't want any air bubbles in the middle. That would mean we'd have holes in the cookies when we cut them. So this rolls beautifully. And you can make this now any diameter that you wish. I think I want it just a little bit fatter. There we go. Oh, this is perfect. The last step calls for a half a cup of King Arthur sparkling sugar. And it is little tiny particles of cubed sugar that gives a sparkle to the outside edge. Well, this does the very same thing and is far less expensive. This is sugar in the raw. It is just raw sugar, and this is how I'm going to do that. I'm just going to spread some, and I'm not measuring. I'm just going to spread enough on here that we can get it covered completely with this sugar. It gives such a nice sweet edge to this. And foil is not airtight, so I always then put these little logs in a plastic bag. Now these 2 logs are going to go in the freezer because I have my practice batch in the refrigerator, and then these need to be chilled for several hours until they're very firm, and or overnight. 2 or 3 hours would do it if you're in a hurry, but these freeze for about a year. So I'm just going to put these right out in our freezer so that they become part of level 1 food storage, and very convenient to have these. These, if you have an expected company and want to serve something, you can. I have cut them frozen before. It's a little harder, but it works just fine. At least I have cut my pecan ones like that. So for right now, I'm just going to stick these in the fridge, and we're going to get the other 2 out. So here's what the pecan log looks like. And it's nice and solid. So I'm just going to cut these now in about 1/4 inch rounds. And I can turn the roll as I cut so it doesn't flatten out too much on the bottom edge while I'm cutting these. So this is 20 cookies. Now, we bake these at 350 until they are barely browning. The others have to cook at 400, so we'll get the pan ready for those, but then we will we'll wait until after these are done and then kick up the temperature. So these are going in the oven. We are just going to wrap this roll back up, put it back in the fridge. And these were the orange ones that I made on my trial run. And this is the dough that was a little bit dry. So this is the tail end of the one log. So with this cookie, you can see that there was a little bit of air in the middle. That's what happens if we don't get the air all the way out. Also, the sugar has a tendency to burn on the bottom of the pan. So with this particular recipe, you need to really watch. Now, we cooked these only 11 to 13 minutes. Now, they did not look done to me, and so I cooked them from 13 to 15 minutes, and that was a mistake because they turned out just as hard as rocks. So the flavor was great, but they were just so hard that Jim and I couldn't even eat them until I figured out a way to soften them. And so what I did to soften was I put a damp paper towel in a Ziploc bag and put the cookies inside with that damp paper towel. You could also use a slice of orange, a thick slice of orange, which would be great, or even apple would work, and just leave it for a few hours and they soften up just fine. So that's a little trick in case you do accidentally what I did. Okay, so these are a little bit smaller. And this one was the one that I also had to add the extra 1/4 cup of water to make it so that the roll would stick together. So 2 more. We're now waiting for the oven to be free so we can do these, and I cannot do 2 of these in the same oven, not just because the temperature differential, but also because these large cookie sheets block too much of the heat and things cook unevenly. So I just do 1 sheet at a time. So we will be back when both cookies are done and we can show you the results. Well, I could not be happier with the way these turned out. Take a look. So we have the, that is hot. We have the pecan cookies, which just turned out perfectly. And notice that they expanded. They're still about the same width, but they expanded. They're nice and brown on the bottom. These were baked at 350 for about 15 minutes. Now, the orange cookies, I decided to lower the oven temperature from 400 to 375. My oven runs a little bit hot, And last time the sugar burned on the bottom and the bottoms were a little bit black. And so look how beautiful the bottoms are on this. And these cooked for exactly 12 minutes at 375. Now these didn't get any bigger. They may have puffed up just a little bit, but they, I'm hoping, are not hard as rocks. So first we're going to try the pecan cookies, and I love these cookies. Whoops, I'm going to put my mic away from my mouth so you don't hear me chomping. Every time I eat one of these cookies, oh, they're so good. It just takes me back immediately to when my children were growing up and we made these all the time. And when some of the older ones got a bit older, they could take them out of the fridge, cut them, and bake them themselves, which they did often. Oh, yes, those are just, they still remain one of my favorite cookies ever. So let's try the orange cookies and see how they are. Oh. Oh my goodness. These are entirely different than the batch I baked to test because I overbaked them just a little bit. These are soft, they are wonderful, the bottoms are beautiful. The orange peel, the candied orange peel, looks just like jewels. The taste, the smell was fantastic when they were baking. These are just great. I'm going to like these as much as I like those pecan cookies. They are just wonderful. So here are a couple of cookie recipes that are easy to put together and so handy for you to have, especially during a busy time of year when you're doing a lot of cooking and baking anyway. These you can just pull right out of the refrigerator or thaw from the freezer, slice and bake, and it's so convenient. So I hope you try these. Let us know what you think, and we will see you very soon for more videos.